Dr. Vikki Petersen here. I wanted to talk with you today about a point that comes up a lot here at the clinic, but specifically a patient asked me about earlier today, and that was the problem of having an allergy test done, and this is typically a blood test, and finding a lot of positive results, meaning that often in these tests, a patient comes back and a lot of very healthy foods that they're eating show positive. And it can be very upsetting. You don't know really where to start because these are foods like cucumbers and broccoli and apples, and we're not talking about junk food here. And yet it seems to be that the majority of foods that the person really has in their diet, usually healthy, are showing up on this test. And if you're not feeling well and you're striving to get to the underlying cause of why you have digestive problems or other types of symptoms, you kind of do this test as a hope for, wow, it'll tell me what I should eat and what I shouldn't eat. And when it comes up with everything but the kitchen sink being positive, it can obviously be very distressing. So these tests, I can tell you, are not particularly accurate. And the reason that is because they're usually being done on someone who has what's called a leaky gut. So what that means is that your small intestine, which is 23 feet long and has the surface area of a tennis court, so we're talking about a lot of acreage in your body in that small intestine. The intestine has an interesting duality, meaning that it lets food that has been properly digested out, meaning it leaves the intestine, goes out into your bloodstream, and then delivers all that wonderful nutrition to all your cells. You have 10 trillion cells that you have to feed every time you eat, so it's got a big job to do. That's why it's so large. But on the other hand, what a normal intestine does is it disallows or prevents from entering into the bloodstream things that shouldn't go there. So bacteria and amoebas and parasites and a whole host of toxins and potentially pathogenic or disease-causing organisms, then it doesn't let through. So it has this gatekeeper system that's really quite fascinating, and these gates kind of open and close depending on what's trying to pass through. So it's pretty brilliant, which is another reason your intestine is called your second brain. It's smart. However, if it's leaky, it means that it's had damage, and that damage has resulted in that whole gatekeeper system not working very well, and so the gates are sort of left ajar and things pass through that shouldn't. So not only can pathogenic organisms pass through, which is considered one of the initiating processes associated with autoimmune disease. We can talk about that a different time. But what we're talking about today as far as these foods is that partially digested food. So you can imagine that food leaves your stomach. Imagine it's kind of a chunk. You know how you don't chew very well when you swallow, right? So the stomach breaks it down a little bit, but it's still a pretty big size. Now, of course, not that big. I'm using a pictorial here with my hands. But so imagine you swallowed, it was that big, and now it's down to that big, and it first enters your small intestine. And what's supposed to occur, our enzymes are supposed to work on that food and digest it and turn it into available nutrition that's very, very microscopically small, and now that can leave the small intestine. But with a leaky gut, you can have partially digested food. So it's not broken down as efficiently as it should be. It's partially digested, it's too large in size, and that falls through these holes from the leaky gut into the bloodstream. So what happens then is your bloodstream doesn't identify this perfectly innocent cucumber or piece of broccoli as a good nourishing food. It instead, because of the size, it doesn't recognize it and says, "What's that?" And it attacks it as if it was something bad. These blood tests that are called IgG tests, but they're blood tests for food allergies, that's a lot of times what they are reacting to. I'm not saying they're never right, but when you come back with a test that has everything but the kitchen sink positive, meaning there's a lot of positive foods, really all that tells you is you have a leaky gut. Those foods are not all positive. So I really wanted to try to explain that point because, as I said, it's not only very distressing, but the person could eliminate those foods and replace them with another group of foods, and then the test would just show positive to the new group of foods. Are they allergic to all those foods? Absolutely not. They have a leaky gut. So that's the root cause that we have to handle. Not difficult to do so, but that's the issue. Not that you're truly allergic to all these foods. So if you know somebody who's had a test like this and they're sort of pulling their hair out because they don't know where to start as regards these food reactions, wondering if they really are allergic to all of these or what does it mean and what should I do, this is what they should do. Have them contact me. I'm happy to set them on the right path as far as what really needs to be done. Or if it's happened with you, please understand that's really what's occurring, and what we need to do is stand back and get to the underlying root cause of why the leaky gut is there, and then it heals, those gates close again, and you stop reacting to all these foods. Some patients come to see us and they're down to just a handful of foods they can tolerate, and they're truly not allergic to all those other ones. It's once again this leaky gut. So I hope that information was helpful, and until next time, I wish you very good health.